Hello everyone, I'm Master of the Lemons, aka Lemmy.
And I'm HiroTheJapaneseTrain, aka Matt.
And today we're going to be talking about a character that...
Clarence.
Clarence.
We're talking about Clarence.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Clarence. Let's just call him Clarence the whole episode and just make believe that we're in that reality.
Yeah.
It does fit him though. The name Clarence, like... Here's the thing about Arthur. Let's just dive right into it, because I think if I were to sum Arthur up, like the way I feel about him, in just a few sentences, I would say that he's all about his spotless record. Like, do you realize how hard it is for an engine to maintain, like, a spotless record? Not just not getting any accidents, but never get dirty, never make a mess, never... For an engine to go through his whole career before coming to Sodor without a single mishap or accident, I don't think it's just as simple as Arthur's, like, polite and good-natured. I think he's, like, actively trying to maintain this spotless record. I think he's a bit of a goody two-shoes, which sounds like a Clarence to me.
Yeah, the thing that's leaping out to me about his spotless record is it also feels like something that a particularly young engine would come up with.
That's interesting, yeah, because like you can't be a 25-year-old, 30-year-old engine and never have had an accident. It just means you're not doing anything at that point. And it's interesting because Arthur was only on the LMS for 2 years. He was like 1946, I think, was when he was built.
That's when his class is.
Yeah,
it's 46 to 52.
Yeah, and so I'm going to take the earlier end of that and say 1946. Well, British Railways takes over in 1948. And so really the only chance he would have had to be LMS at all, and considering he's the only engine in the show pretty much that has LMS on him, that's kind of an important thing to retain. The only way that he could be on the LMS is if he's from the earlier end of his class.
Yeah.
And so I think that he's from 1946, let's say. And so he has 2 years on the LMS, but just 2, like not a very long stretch there. And then after that, he would go to British Railways, so comes under ownership of the other railway, which means he would lose his LMS livery and be painted in a BR livery. So
I almost feel like that he almost goes over to Sodor as soon as that happens.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
As soon as nationalization happens. I feel like the Fat Controller, maybe Arthur even works nearby Sodor, because we know that the LMS did.
Yeah.
And Arthur is a quick buy for a young, efficient, sturdy tank engine.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you get that feeling off of him, don't you, at the beginning of the episode.
He's very impressive.
Yeah, he zips in, and Thomas and Percy... Almost, it seems like they haven't seen an engine of that size.
Certainly
before.
not a tank engine.
Yeah, like a tank engine that's like that, that big and powerful and sleek. And I do get the sense that Arthur's kind of young. I don't think that he is very experienced, because I think if he is, he'd realize that his spotless record isn't all that. But he'd also realize that you can't go through life walking on eggshells like that, avoiding even the smallest mishap.
Certainly not on Sodor. He picked the worst island to live on.
I know. I do want to talk about, like, I'm interested to know what his 2 years on the LMS were like. Like,
yeah.
Because that's still 2 full years that he avoided any sort of mishap. And I'm gonna stretch this a little bit. I'm gonna say it's not just avoiding accidents. It's not just avoiding large mishaps. It's like avoiding a speck of dust, right? Mm-hmm. It's avoiding, like...
conflicts, avoiding...
Yeah, exactly, right? He's steering clear of anything that might affect his spotless record. And I feel like, when I picture the way Arthur would talk, I kind of project based on, like, what is somebody who's quite dedicated to their manners and their appearance and their spotless record, what does someone like that sound like? I've always had this pet idea that I feel Arthur would speak with a very proper Queen's English accent. He'd sound like this, something like this. And very polite, very proper, use all the proper manners. And can't you just imagine it, when he first sees Thomas and Percy? He says, nice to meet you. The way he says it.
Yeah, he definitely seems like he's having a culture shock, but he's trying to hold it together.
Yeah, he does. I feel like he's just come to Sodor, and then he sees these two... Like, I bet Thomas and Percy are a lot dirtier than the episode gives them credit for. I bet they've got grime all over, right? I bet Thomas has, like, a smudge on his nose, and Arthur comes over, and his gut feeling is, ooh, Oh dear. But instead, he doesn't say that. He's polite.
He's having an inner monologue the entire time. He's
exactly.
He's like, oh God, what am I doing here? I'm definitely going to wreck. There's something bad waiting for me. But I have to be polite. Remember, Arthur, remember your training.
I passed that red tender engine on the way here, and he was on the line side, and some trucks had thrown him in a ditch, and... oh dear. Does that happen constantly here? Probably not. It's probably just a bad day on Sodor. That's probably all it is. Of course it isn't. It's very common. But,
Do you wonder if the other engines on the LMS also kind of put a little bit of that into him? Like...
I wonder. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, because the LMS and the Northwestern Railway have a lot of history together. You know?
They do, a whole lot of history.
Yeah.
Because basically, for those who don't know, so the LMS is the railway that borders the Northwestern. So, you know, out of the big four, the Northwestern has the closest ties to the London, Midland, and Scottish. It's really cool to see an LMS engine kind of outright with LMS on him finally come to Sodor in the show, because that you would think you'd see a lot of those engines, and you do. I mean, James is kind of LMS. Donald and Douglas are technically LMS. There's a lot of engines that are from that railway that we don't really realize are LMS, but they are.
Yeah,
and it's cool because Arthur isn't just LMS. He's not just an LMS engine that's painted black, and he's like aggressively LMS. He's like in the...
He's got the red.
Yeah, he's got the, what is it, Crimson Lake? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
You know, that deep red color. He's got the yellow lining. He's got the LMS on the side. He is the most LMS guy you could ever see. And the crazy thing is, none of his class had this livery. Like, that was never the case. So here's what I think. I think that Arthur is one of a kind. I feel like they gave him a very specific service, like a passenger service or something, that they didn't give to any of the other members of his class. And probably, like, elevated him somehow. Like, maybe they tested out this livery on his class. And it became all the more precious once the LMS ended 2 years later. And all of a sudden, no engines are painted in the LMS red. You know, so I feel like Arthur's the one member of his class that has this special treatment. So all the other IVAT tank engines, all the other IVAT 2s, are probably like, they see him given this red color, right? Right out of the works, he's given this color. He's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, right? Mm-hmm. The controller comes to the very last stage of his building and cracks a champagne bottle over him and everything, right? It's this huge...
a bit like, not unlike Evening Star.
Yeah, it's kind of like a micro version of that, right? Where, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of...
Yeah, even like the workmen and everyone at his christening would be like, gosh, he's beautiful. He's spotless.
Yeah, and Arthur would just grin at hearing that, and he'd absorb in all this attention and admiration, right? It's like, you know, I imagine, you know, he would be treated like something special. And it's interesting because Arthur is not a naturally arrogant character.
No.
If this were someone else who's, you know, more inclined to pride, right? If this was James and he was loaded with all this pride...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
It would be in his head before they even said anything.
Exactly, yeah. It would make him incredibly vain, which he already is. But you know, that's like what his red paint did on Sodor, right?
With Arthur, I kind of read into it as a pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I think Arthur is actually quite humble. And so when he is given this gift, when he is given this amazing privilege...
He doesn't want to let anyone down.
Exactly, right? Everybody's looking at him saying, oh yes, the new crowning service that Arthur will be pulling. You know, he's going to be a credit to our railway. You know,
and you know what I'm imagining? I'm imagining that he even spends a lot of time with other engines that share this livery, like the red tender engines.
Ooh, yeah. So he's like, he's not hanging out.
He spends more time in the tender engine shed. So he feels, you know, on one hand, he feels really elevated and really special, but also he feels out of his own element with all these tender engines who don't really know the life of a tank engine.
Exactly, right. And maybe now and then he overhears them say something kind of discriminatory about a tank engine, like, you know, oh, those coal bunker bastards, you know, they just simply don't have any idea what it takes to pull an express. Isn't that right, Arth? Ooh, you're a tank engine. I couldn't tell. The red just... Oh,
you're one of those.
Oh, no, it's fine. I I get the meaning of what you were saying. I think Arthur's a real people pleaser. Right? He wants to make everybody happy, and he doesn't want to let anyone down, right? So he's walking on eggshells a lot, and I get a real nervous energy off of Arthur, you know?
He's the kind of person that if one of his friends is being backtalked but in front of him, or like someone's talking about one of Arthur's friends behind the friend's back and into Arthur, I think that Arthur would appease them in the moment, even if he disagreed.
Yeah,
he would let it slide. He would let them say whatever they want and not agree, but he wouldn't say anything that would indicate that.
Yeah, he'd say something as neutral as possible, where, like, if one of the bigger tender engines was talking about his friend Lawrence, let's say, his friend Lawrence, right? You know,
his friend Clarence.
His friend Clarence. Arthur's friend Clarence, right? So the big tender engine is like, oh, that Clarence, you know, he can barely pull 2 coaches. It's absolutely pathetic, isn't it? And Arthur's like, oh, well, it's certainly not as much horsepower as you have. Yes, quite right. He is a weakling, isn't he? He's,
He would say something just factual. He'd be like, he is a tank engine.
Yeah, exactly, right. But it's interesting. We're tapping into something interesting here, which is that I think that Arthur, in his attempt to be a people pleaser, in his attempt to kind of to honor this great privilege he's been given, this wonderful color, this special service, his ability to hang out with the tender engines, those things, I think, he really should stand up a little bit more for what he believes in, right? He kind of does tiptoe around. He kind of does...
For one thing, it's not healthy to be so repressed.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so let's get to Sodor. I think that when Arthur comes to Sodor, right, I think he's wound up very tight. And, you know, all he's thinking is just, I must maintain my spotless record. I must maintain my spotless record.
Which is funny, because I bet as soon as nationalization happens, British Railways has forgotten about him entirely. Like, if he was still there, they would paint him black and make him pull coal.
Yeah, they don't care, right? But maybe he gets out right before BR starts.
I think so.
So he probably thinks, oh, if I go back home and they all see me with a smudge or a scratch, oh, they'd be so ashamed. I don't know if I can handle that sort of...
Not knowing they're all about to look like that.
Yeah.
So he's like a little LMS time capsule coming to the Northwestern.
He really is, you know. And so he makes his way onto the Northwestern, and immediately the first engines he encounters are Thomas and Percy, which...
You know what's funny is the Northwestern engines probably don't think... If they didn't know that they were expecting a new Ivet tank engine, they just think he was a visitor. Because LMS engines would come and go all the time.
Yeah, that's true. He'd pull into the station with Gordon, and Gordon would just be like, oh, what time are you due back? Oh, never. Like, he should start putting the pieces together. It's like, so we've got another one of these. James was bad enough. What was that, Gordon? Oh, no, nothing.
Oh my god, is that a red engine?
Shit. Yeah, alright.
Let me at him! Let me at him!
Honestly, though, that's the thing. You realize Arthur is, like, the only other standard gauge, like, red engine.
Just like Annie and Clarabelle and Henrietta with Daisy, James's feelings had to be soothed by all the engines collectively that night, and they would convince him it's not red, it's crimson.
Yeah, it would take like 5 hours. They'd be in the sheds until dawn, and James would just be like, okay, but crimson is red.
It's not your red, James. His red is a little bit of brown in it, maybe even a little bit of mahogany.
I don't need a lesson in colour theory from you, Henry, okay? I know more colours than you have rivets on your body.
Meanwhile, Thomas and Percy are like outside the shed making sure Arthur doesn't come by.
Yeah, Arthur, imagine this. Just James is yelling him from the inside, and then Arthur pulls up on the outside, totally unaware. He's like, oh, hello, you two. What are you doing out here? Oh, hey, Arthur. You're not supposed to go in there.
Why don't I show you my branch line?
Yeah, why don't I show you my entire branch line right now? It's 11 o'clock at night. I think it's a good time. Come on, let's go. That red, crimson... What's that going on in there? Oh, nothing. Let's just move along. Come on. Like, you know, you would have to distract him. But yeah. I think, you know, let's talk a bit more about Thomas and Arthur. Because I gotta say, I really, really love the combination of Thomas and Arthur in Spotless Record, because
they capture Thomas perfectly. It's as good a Thomas episode as it is Arthur's introduction.
I would say so, because the thing is, it's worlds colliding. Thomas, I see as this really scrappy, from the streets, you know, he doesn't do things by the book, whereas Arthur colors in between the lines, right? That's how he lives his life, you know?
Arthur would be like, if they were like kids on the playground, Arthur would be in the corner with like a newsboy cap and like a varsity jacket with a little lunchbox held by both hands.
Yeah, he's a Boy Scout, right? A total Boy Scout.
I don't know about Boy Scout. I think choir boy. Thomas is the Boy Scout who works with his hands.
Choir boy. That's a good comparison. Yeah, he walks on eggshells and he follows every rule to a T, even the ones that don't need to be followed. Arthur follows them, right? Because he's just very, very careful. And Thomas isn't careful at all. He goes fast and he breaks things, right? That's what Thomas does,
including Arthur's Spotless Record.
Yeah, exactly. I think Thomas is just a bit threatened by Arthur's grandeur.
Yeah.
Because Thomas himself wants to be impressive, right? He's always bragging about his paint, his number one, his branch line, his coaches, all that, right? He wants to be perceived as the best of the best when it comes to tank engines, right? And so when Arthur shows up...
If you look at the two of them, which one do you think should be shunting and should be having a branch line all to himself? Just physically.
Exactly. And that's what Thomas is threatened by, right?
I think that in the scene when they're shunting, Thomas has a little bit of extra bravado.
Yeah. Because it's like, I imagine Thomas has felt condescended to by Arthur this whole time, which... He's not totally wrong. Arthur is a bit condescending, where he's like, you know, I imagine when they go to Brendam Yards to shunt, right? Thomas is like, well, here it is, our biggest harbor. And Arthur's like, oh, it's quite quaint, isn't it? What do you mean quaint? Oh, well, you know, I've seen much bigger harbors where I'm from, but I suppose for a small island, it's rather big. Like, he means well, right? But Thomas is just
He just doesn't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly.
He's tripping over his words so much that Thomas doesn't have any time for that.
Exactly. Thomas is going red in the face, and he's just like, "Oh hell no, that's it. We're messing with him," you know. And so he tells
he's shunting the trucks and being all, you know, rough about it, and then he's like, "Join in, Arthur," knowing that he won't.
Yeah, exactly. He's like daring him, right?
Showing him like, this is how we do things on Sodor.
Yeah, exactly. Like a truck just flies right past Arthur, and he's like, "Oh!" And you know, he's like a little startled, right? And he's like, and Thomas is like, "What? Have you not shunted before?" Well. Not really. This is actually an interesting thing. It's possible Arthur hasn't shunted before. Maybe he's, you know, actually like, you know, always pulled coaches, and he hasn't actually done any shunting. You know, this is his first time. And it's not like he's against doing it, because again, Arthur isn't above anything. He's just really trying to make sure that he doesn't make the LMS look bad, and he doesn't disgrace the privilege that he's been given.
Which is so funny, because again, he's latching on to something when he's moving. He's literally just changing his whole life, but he's continuing to latch on to not unlike Duck.
I cannot wait until we get to talk about how Arthur and Duck's worlds collide. Literally.
Literally.
Because those two have so much in common and also so much different about them.
One thing I want to bring up too is the relationship that Arthur and Percy have is a lot less thrown out there in Spotless Record. But it would be pretty damn good.
It would be really interesting, because Percy is... I think this is part of the reason Thomas and Percy get along so well, is they're both rough and tumble from the streets. You know, Thomas is from the early days of the railway where, you know, they had to use, you know, whatever they could find lying around to literally build a railway from the ground up. You know, he had to be rough and tumble. Whereas Percy has been all over Britain. You know, he's worked on like 7 different railways, and he's all scratched up, and he's had a lot of different life experiences, and, you know, like they're both like that, right? But Thomas has this insecurity about him where when he sees a bigger guy, he wants to go and mess with him, right? Whereas Percy isn't like that. Percy would be totally friendly. So I feel like after the Spotless Record, right, when Thomas has gotten Arthur into that accident and he feels bad and he says, "Sorry, Arthur, that's not what I intended to happen." Is Arthur really okay with just losing his record just like that? I feel like...
No, that speaks to Arthur's conflict avoiding.
Yeah, because I think when Arthur says, you know, "and then mended again, just like friendships," like, I feel like he's twitching a little bit. We can't see it in the model series, but I feel like his eye would be twitching. Like,
Well, that's the thing, too, is Thomas comes in and apologizes, and it's a pretty sincere scene. But then Arthur backs it up with saying something really weird that's not true. Yeah. It's like, oh, I can mend my spotless record. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, which I don't think it's fine. I think that he's had a psychotic break.
Like, Arthur would be internally screaming, but Thomas would just have this, like, really confused look about him. Like, yeah, glad your record is spotless again. Bye.
Yeah, he just leaves. Thomas, like, he just gets out of there fast. And then Arthur, I feel like when Arthur returns to, like, Knapford Sheds or wherever, you know, all those engines live, the sheds are empty, and Arthur's like, oh, thank the Lord. Ah! And he just screams at the top of his lungs, and it just echoes through the hills of Knapford.
He cracks his cylinder.
He just has an absolute meltdown. He's like, my spotless record is ruined. Oh, good Lord.
Arthur doesn't know that, like, Henry's on the other side of the shed. Henry's like, I thought I was the only one having a breakdown here.
God damn it. Henry has some other issue that he's coping with on the other side.
Henry screams too, but Arthur just thinks it's an echo.
Yeah. God damn it. But yeah, so Arthur has a meltdown, right? And then he's like, it's okay, I can fix this. No, I can't. I can't fix this at all. Who am I without my spotless record? I don't have a spotless record. I don't have anything now.
Am I even Arthur?
Yeah. He starts hyperventilating, right? And then Percy is the one who comes up behind him, and he's like, hello, Arthur. You seem panicked. And Arthur's like, oh, I'm not panicked, Percy, not at all. And he's like very crazed, right? And Percy's like, he would help Arthur work through his problems for the next 2 hours. He'd just be
I think Percy could have I don't even think Percy would be talking for most of the conversation. It would just be Arthur rambling. But I think just having Percy as a sounding board, Arthur would be like, well, my record's not spotless, but, is that all right?
Of course that's all right. I mean, you don't have to have a spotless record. I mean, I've been in, like, 43 accidents.
Oh my god. Am I going to be in 43 accidents?
I mean, with any hope, yeah, if you last long enough.
What?
So, Arthur, you say that you don't know what you are anymore, that you've lost your sense of self. Well, you know, you just gotta go around and try new things. Try pulling goods trains. Try pulling special expresses. Try pulling the breakdown train. Try, you know, go to the quarry. I'm sure Mavis would like to have you. You know, go to Vickerstown. Go to Elsbridge. Go to, you know, he'd just push him, like, go and try new things. And I think this is the point where Arthur shifts, where he's like, he realizes his spotless record is absolutely devastated. There's no coming back from that. He needs...
I can't mend it again?
Well, not really, no. I don't know why Thomas let you believe that. But, like...
I mean, the funny thing, too, is, like, it's not like there's a clipboard with Arthur, and it's like, oh, Arthur, look at your record. It's not so spotless. It's all in his head.
Yeah, it's like he's keeping track of it, right?
It's his own invention.
Yeah, it's a phrase that, like, his designer said at, like, his building ceremony, right? Like, no one's keeping track. Nobody knows, like, how many times he's gotten dirty or whatever. It's not relevant.
So then that kind of takes us into something fishy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Because essentially what we've got here is that Arthur needs to find a new avenue. He needs to find a new thing to center his life around. And so he finds that, weirdly enough, in the fishing village. And I think it is very poetic that he takes a radical 180 turn. He goes from trying to be as clean and spotless as possible
to doing the least desirable job on the island.
Exactly, right? And I think he's been so tightly wound his whole life that he just really deep down what he wants more than anything is just to get dirty. You know, that's just what he wants. It's like, oh, I would love to just pull fish trucks all day and just be covered with grime and dirt and salt water. Oh, I've never felt salt water before, right? You know, it's like he wants that lifestyle. He wants to live. He wants to.
It's like when you have someone that's so extremely repressed, like find something that's just like the polar opposite. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
he's just becoming so indulgent in it.
Right. Yeah, and it's like it's interesting that he ends up, like out of all things with fish. I wonder if he like talks to Henry at some point or something. Like if
I also feel like if he was working on the LMS, that you don't see an awful lot of that sort of thing. Yeah, especially now where he comes from, so it's something exotic to him.
Yeah, no, it's probably something that he's like never really seen fish trains before.
Yeah.
Or it could alternatively be that that's the one train he's familiar with.
That was dangled in front of him.
Yeah, because like the Flying Kipper is like one of the only named trains that comes out of Sodor that kind of goes a long distance into England.
That would be interesting if Arthur would know of the Flying Kipper before going to Sodor and be like...
Yeah, it's one of the few things. He's like, okay, what is there here that I could work with? Well, Sodor has the Wild Nor'Wester. I'm not pulling a passenger train again. The passengers would never have me. Let's think. Well, there's the Flying Kipper. Who runs that? Is that Gordon, or... Is it, I'll have to look into it.
Gordon needs to hear that.
Yeah. But, like, the Flying Kipper is one of the only, like, he knows that Sodor exports fish. That's, like, one of the only things he knows about it. And so, like, that's the first thing that he goes and looks into, right?
Yeah.
And I just love how, like, eager he is in something fishy. It really seems like he's lost, a foundational block of his personality, and he's desperately, like, looking for another thing to grapple onto fast. Like, the way that, like, at the end of it, where the Fat Controller is, like, talks about the fishing line, and Arthur's like, can I do it, sir? Please! Thomas doesn't like fish, but I do! Like, he's, like, so enthusiastic. He's so ready. He's just like, please, give me something, please.
Because it was dangled in front of him before, and he lost the chance.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, and it's funny. It's always Thomas and Arthur. It's always like Thomas is ruining Arthur's life just by just by his own just by bad luck usually.
Arthur's just like, I'll never win living with Thomas. I've got to get away. Yeah. Just something that's entirely my own. I can't stand that blue engine anymore.
Yeah. What if the Fat Controller puts Arthur on Thomas's branch initially? And it's just Arthur.
Oh my god!
And he just can't stand it anymore. He's just like he's just at every turn he seems to diffuse my life's goals. I can't do it.
Arthur goes to the carriage shed for another screaming session when Annie and Clarabelle are sleeping.
Yeah, god damn it. Arthur has screaming sessions. Oh my god. He's just so anxious. I really think he is. He needs to let it out. But, like, the fact that, like, I think, it's funny that first Thomas destroys his Spotless Record. He didn't really mean to. He just wanted to kind of put Arthur in his place because he thought he was being uppity, right? But then...
And Thomas doesn't know about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Like, he doesn't realize how much pathology Arthur has wrapped up in this whole Spotless Record thing. Thomas would be like, if he found out, he'd be like, Jesus, I didn't realize that was such a big thing to you.
You're weird.
Yeah, you're really weird. Like, that would just be his response. But I think, but so then Thomas also takes his fishing line from him. And Arthur, throughout that whole episode, is kind of like, okay, Arthur, it's now or never. It's now or never. Ask for a job. I know.
But ask calmly. You don't want to freak him out.
Yes, ask calmly. You have to get this right. No, but I can't. I can't just ask for a job. I've never done that in my entire life.
Would anybody like the job?
And he doesn't say anything, right? And Thomas gets it. And it's like, and I'm sure it's really hard for him to actually ask for something. He takes what he's given. That's always been his mentality, He just lives kind of very carefully around other people. And this is the first time he asks for something for himself. He shuts his eyes tight and he just says at the top of his voice, he's just like, "Sir, I would like the job!" And then there's silence. And then the Fat Controller's like, "Then the line is yours." That's it. That was all it took. And Arthur opens his eyes and he's just like, "Oh, I can't believe it. This is the best day of my life." And all the other engines at the sheds are just rolling their eyes. They're like,
yeah. For one thing, they're getting over the shock.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Of Arthur screaming.
But yeah, so that's really great. You know what else I want to talk about is Arthur. Arthur runs into the back of Duck's train.
Yes. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object that is Duck, who doesn't flinch at all when this accident happens.
He just stays there. He doesn't even get pushed into the crossing gates. I would love to imagine that that's an intentional effort. You know, it's like Duck, when he feels something hit the back of his train, he immediately tenses up and puts his brakes on harder than stone. And he's just like, and buffers don't even touch the gates. He just barely.
Then he gets a 1,000-yard stare after the accident.
Yeah. We don't really get to see Duck's reaction. He doesn't even say anything to being hit, right? It's like, you know...
He's just aghast.
Yeah, like, he's probably in shock,
like, several trucks were just obliterated. There's fruit everywhere. His driver and the signalman are just covered in fruit.
Yeah, it's like, he's trying to put together what the hell even just happened.
I think to Duck, this is the equivalent of someone in a clown suit coming, like, beating you over the head with a street light, and then just, like, running away.
Yeah, you'd have to, like, process what just happened to you. You'd be like... All right, well, this is clearly some sort of accident. That's clear to me. But why am I covered in fruit? Why is there an engine from the LMS behind me that I've never seen before? Why doesn't he have a brake van? Why is only the front half of me covered in fruit, despite the fact that my cab is much closer? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. He's trying to put it together.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Like at some point, he's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah. And Arthur's just like, I'm Arthur, and I'm a mess. And I think later on that day, right, I feel like Arthur and Duck would have a chance to talk to each other, right? And, you know, maybe the next day Duck would be taking on, you know, water in the yard, right? And Arthur pulls by, and he doesn't want to be seen by him. He's like, oh dear, that's the Great Western engine I ran into. Let me just creep by him and, oh, hello there. Are you the engine that ran into me yesterday? Yes. I am. How's your bunker doing? Oh, it's doing all right. My brake van's in pieces, though. And my guard.
And my guard. Squashed guard flew everywhere.
God damn it. But that would be a really awkward conversation, but also really good.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think Duck would, like, be... You know, Duck would kind of just be sitting there in judgment, right? And he would just sit there and just be like, you know, so, you gonna tell me exactly what happened yesterday?
And again, does Duck know that he's staying here? Or I think that Duck is having this conversation because he's like,
wait a minute,
right,
Matt.
well, clearly your manager's gonna want to tell the insurance.
Matt.
So, yeah.
Duck is not here yet. All right. So audience, so this is like a choose your own adventure. Let's just let's say that for our purposes now, let's put it in 1965 or something. Because, like, you gotta remember, like, this whole thing is malleable, right? Like, you know, we're just moving stuff around, just having fun with it, right? And sometimes an idea...
Are we doing 65 or 55?
65.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want it to be Duck's first engine he meets on the island is Arthur. You know?
First time, Duck's first day on Sodor, he gets assaulted.
God damn it. But, like, yeah, let's just put it in, like, 1970 or something, right? Just clear everybody.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make it work and just clear the BR era, you could have Arthur go immediately into preservation in 1948 for some reason. Or go into private ownership or something. Like maybe some LMS preservation foundation starts.
Or Arthur's been perpetuating the Spotless Record for 7 years.
Yeah, like it keeps going like that. You know, he's just like in this preservation society for like 20 years. You know, I mean that could, you know, that could work, right? It's easy to find workarounds to this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't really care what the timeline is exactly. What I care about is kind of getting the ideas about Arthur across. And most importantly, having him interact with the characters that I really want him to interact with. And so imagine Duck's been on the island quite some time, and Arthur's new, and the two of them, you know, are having this conversation. And so, you know, I imagine it would be interesting to see the two of their personalities work on each other, because Arthur is deeply connected with the LMS, but it's not really in the same way that Duck is connected to the Great Western. Duck cares about the Great Western's values and its principles. Arthur cares about maintaining the status that the LMS gifted to him.
Oh, yeah, Arthur is strained by the things that the LMS put on him.
Yeah.
Like, Duck lives by it. Arthur is oppressed by it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Arthur ideally would not even have LMS written on him. He'd get a new livery, and he'd move on from the LMS. Duck wouldn't want to do that. Duck, in fact, was painted in BR black for a few years, and then when he came to Sodor, was repainted GWR green. He really loves the Great Western. And so I think that, it's interesting, the difference here, because at first, Duck would be like, oh, you would expect such carelessness from an LMS engine, at first, right? But then, then they would talk to each other a while, and Duck would realize, like, you don't really seem like an LMS engine at all. You seem like a very nervous engine is what you seem like. And Arthur's like, well, I'm a bit nervous. I feel terrible about having ruined my spotless record. I was told at the very beginning that I'm not supposed to get into any accidents. I'm not supposed to get dirty. I'm not supposed to run into trucks at full speed. I'm not supposed to do those things. An engine is never supposed to do those things. And Duck is just like...
Well, that's daft.
Yeah. And Arthur would just cock an eyebrow. And then Duck would be like, Arthur, I know a thing or two about well-built systems. A railway's just a big series of moving parts that all work together to get the passengers where they need to be and to get the goods to the station on time.
Right, efficiently and without fail.
Without most fail. However, every good system has some slack. Every now and then there's got to be an accident. There's got to be a snag in the line. You can't have perfection or the system doesn't work. Something that runs 100% without fail is bound to fail catastrophically at some point. That is why you've got to have a little buffer room for mistakes. Not a big amount of buffer room, mind you, but a little bit of buffer room. The Great Western saw it. They all understood that now and then there's going to be an accident. I understand that very well. And that's why I'll forgive you for what happened the other day. But only once. If you do that again, well, then we're going to have problems. And Arthur would... I feel like he'd be kind of enlightened by this. It wouldn't have ever occurred to him. Being perfect is in and of itself...
Imperfect.
Yeah. And it's like, Duck gets that, right? Because that's like, Duck isn't just a crazy, do everything right all the time guy. He's a do things efficiently, do things by the book. But the book is designed to account for failures,
Besides,
right?
it's the quest that perfection that keeps Arthur screaming alone in sheds.
Yeah. and it's like, Duck could just be like, I've heard you screaming in the back of Arlesborough sheds. I'm a little concerned, to tell you the truth.
Oh God, which time?
You wouldn't realize there's like 7 times. He's like, you need to relax a little bit, Arthur. Go and find something that you truly enjoy. Something that doesn't have anything to do with the LMS or your fancy livery or any of that. Just move along. I think, Arthur would take that to heart, right?
I only have one question, Duck. What's that? What if someone gets hurt? Oh, well, luckily, no one will be hurt.
He just winks at him and leaves. Arthur's like, what does that mean? What the hell does that mean? Like, oh, I said hell. Oh, where's the soap?
Where's the soap?
but what other characters does Arthur interact with that we haven't thought of yet?
He does interact with Salty.
Okay. What happens there?
In Fish, Thomas catapults a train of fish into Salty, and Arthur was trying to tell Thomas how to pull the fish trucks.
Yeah.
But Thomas didn't listen and assaulted Salty with fish.
Thomas and Arthur keep crossing paths. I just love it, right? Because it's just, they don't work well together. They don't get along. Thomas always makes things harder for Arthur. Arthur cares about Thomas, right? They are, I would say, friends. But deep down, Arthur hates him with a burning passion at the same time. It's more like it's almost in like Fairly Odd Parents, where it's like Dinkelberg. It's like
they would have that relationship. Like right. Arthur, Arthur would be like trying to keep his lawn nice and prim and proper, and Thomas just like flings a beach ball into the begonias.
Yeah, exactly right. Like that's just Thomas would be the type to be backing out of his driveway and run over Arthur's mailbox and be like, "Oh shit!"
And also back into Arthur's car.
Yeah, and also back into Arthur. and then just veer out of the neighborhood, and Arthur would just be like, "Thomas the Tank Engine!" But like the thing is, like, I think like there's still neighbors in that metaphor, right? Yeah. Where it's like, even though Arthur is constantly infuriated by Thomas's just recklessness, at the same time, they are friends. But it just he drives him crazy too, and for some reason they keep crossing paths, and Thomas keeps making things hard on Arthur for whatever reason,
which makes his relationship a lot more interesting to me than Ryan or Stanley's relationship with Thomas.
Yeah, it is. Well, because it's like, with Thomas, he's threatened by Arthur at first, but I feel like it's a low-lying threat. It's not like Stepney or like Ryan or Stanley, where he's genuinely like, they think they're better than me. Oh, they're going to take my branch line. Oh,
They also have the big pulling Annie and Clarabelle scene.
Yeah, Arthur doesn't have the big... Emily took that scene from him, so he didn't have to.
Oh, yeah. I don't think Ryan had that scene either, does he? He does! He does!
Yeah, like, Thomas has this long string of characters that almost took his branch line, and he's very threatened by them.
If you pull my coaches, I'll kill you! Yeah. And Arthur overheard that, and so he's like, all right, I'm never touching them, ever. I'm not even going to look at them, because Thomas will kill me.
Yeah, exactly. He's so afraid. Maybe that's why he doesn't pull any coaches on the island at all. Why he does fish.
They might belong to someone.
Yeah. Apparently coaches just belong to people around here. That's not how it is on the LMS.
And then he backs into James's lucky trucks and pulls them, and James, like, wrings his neck.
Yeah. Oh my god. He's like, at some point, Edward would have to sit Arthur down and just be like, "Okay, listen, Arthur. Everyone has their own trucks or coaches here. I don't know why it's that way, but it is.
James has the blue ones. I have no idea why."
Then what does Thomas have?
Green ones.
What? Now, Annie and Clarabelle are Thomas's, but there's also about 30 identical coaches that look just like them. It's okay to pull those, but just don't pull Annie and Clarabelle.
If you see cursive on the coaches, don't pull them.
Okay. Cursive on the coaches, pull them. No, don't pull them. This is too much to remember.
And if you see one break coach, that's the coach that goes on to Thomas's train, so don't touch that one either. Okay. It looks just like the express coaches.
Oh my god, I don't know if I can... Can I just pull fish? Well, that could work. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
But Salty, it's interesting. Arthur and Salty would become really good friends because they're both, they both work with fish constantly, right? They could really relate. And I'm sure
Salty would become friends with literally anyone.
Yeah, come on, it's Salty. He's just like, he's the most lovable guy in the world, right? And I feel like Salty has that laid-back sailor mentality. So it's like, he would really help Arthur unwind and just kind of let everything go. It's just like, sometimes I like to just look out to the sea and just watch the waves go by, watch the ships, watch the gulls. Sometimes you need that relaxation.
Oh my god, that ship's running aground.
God damn it. Quick, Arthur, we've got to both get tow ropes on it, fast. What? Oh my god, Salty's just like exciting lifestyle would clash with Arthur's in a beautiful way. Where they're just like, Salty's always has some great story in the works. And Arthur would like, he would provide some much needed excitement, right? And at the same time, they would have relaxing moments, but they would also have very exciting moments.
Yeah.
I imagine, just imagine Arthur working at Brendam Docks with Salty. Just, maybe for a few weeks at a time, they send him to be a shunter there. And wouldn't that just be so cool, seeing him move around Brendam Docks, this big tank engine with Salty?
Yeah.
That would be the best. And he would get to know Cranky, too. And Salty, and Arthur would just be like, "Ah, the smell of fish in the morning. Don't you just love it, Cranky?" No, I don't, and I never will. And he just turns away.
It's so funny because I think Arthur... Here's the thing about Arthur, to give him like a quick 3-sentence thing.
Right.
Arthur is thrown into a tender engine's world but he really, at his core, wants to be a small tank engine.
Yeah, that really is what it is. And that's like his whole...
Arthur does not want to be as big as he is. He has a lot of the physical attributes that Thomas wants but will never have.
Yeah.
But he wants the life of an engine with even less prestige than Thomas.
Exactly. You know, I mean, he wants to just have a low profile, right? He wants to be the dockyard shunter pulling fish all over the place, right? That's what he wants. He wants somebody...
He wants to live the life of an 040 that's, like, covered in grime and... isn't highly visible.
Yeah, it's just not in the spotlight. It's just not noticeable. That's what he wants desperately. And, you know, I think on Sodor, he can finally attain that because especially when Sodor becomes as well known as it is and becomes just world famous, right? With all the, you know, he's overshadowed by the 8 famous engines. It's like, oh, thank God, I'm in Thomas's shadow. I'm in James's shadow. I can just be a random background engine that only has 3 episodes. 3 episodes, me! I'm not the star, thank God!
And I don't even talk for all of them.
Yeah. Like, you know, he would be...
And then in Thomas and the Runaway Car, he gets assaulted again with his own fish by Thomas.
Oh my God. He'd be like, sorry, Arthur! Like...
Arthur always ends up getting some sort of physical torture when he's with Thomas.
Yeah. Like, and it's usually by chance, but it's just because of Thomas's recklessness. And he never means it, but then Arthur always ends up being the butt of the joke, just because, you know, he's just so unprepared. It's like if Thomas and Arthur were playing football, then Thomas would throw the football, and Arthur would be like, oh, I've got it, oh! And then hit him in the nose and break his nose, right? And Thomas...
or Thomas, it'd be like Lucy and Charlie Brown, where Thomas is holding the football down, and Arthur falls on his back and breaks his spine.
Alright, you gotta admit, that was funny, Arthur. Arthur? Oh my God, Duck, call the hospital. Oh my God! All right, I think we've said our piece on Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur's kind of a refreshing episode because we've had a lot of characters that need a lot of diving into, but
yeah,
Arthur's a character that, you know, I've thought a lot of these things about for a long time.
Yeah.
And just needed to articulate these ideas.
Yeah, he's probably in my top 20 favorite characters, I want to say.
Same here, and he's the favorite character for a lot of people in the fandom, and I don't think that's on accident. Arthur's a very empathetic person, but he also has a lot of the anxieties and stuff that, you know, I can relate to, that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, no, he does, you know, and I think that's, you know, you don't see a lot of characters like that. They generally have a lot of confidence in Thomas. And Arthur doesn't really. He's a lot more anxious. He's a lot more like, you know, I'm just glad that he finally, you know, finds his perfect place in the world on Sodor and finally kind of overcomes his Spotless Record and realizes it isn't something to work towards his entire life. It isn't something to tiptoe around on eggshells and keep pristine. It's something to abandon so that he can do meaningful work to himself.
And what's beautiful, I think, is he manages to maintain his LMS livery. Like
he does. That's the interesting thing. Is like that's what he looks like, right? He's not, and in a way, it's almost more meaningful to get that livery dirty. If he just changed the livery, he'd be like, okay, I am wiping myself of the responsibility. But no, instead he keeps the livery and is willing to get it scuffed up and dirty.
Under protest from James.
Yeah, under protest from James.
James would, like, sneak into the shed with blue paint one night.
Yeah, he'd sneak in. Henry would just be like, James, why are we here? What are we doing? Henry, it's for his own good. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like it. Just get painting. Like...
Arthur would wake up in a night terror.
Oh my God. But anyway, so... I think we've said our piece. So, without further ado, I've been Master of the Lemons, aka Lemmy.
And I'm HiroTheJapaneseTrain, aka Matt.
And see you guys next time.
Take care.